What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Pickup Game Live. Got my guy Chris Winfield, Chris Splash, CJ Holmes, the home scribe, covering the Knicks, covering the Nets beat for the Daily News. And I am Jeff Johnson, locking in with you. Definitely get in the comments. We're going to have a good time today talking this week in Knicks and Nets hoops. Fellas, how you feeling?
Hey, how you feeling, bro? You got the music in the background. You got the chain out. What's going on? I'm trying to go where you going tonight, bro.
Hey, man, it's a big production. It's a big production here.
Yeah, we outside today. CJ, what's good with you, bro?
Hey, feeling good, man. Feeling good. Just blessed another day out here. So
yeah.
My man giving all of the trademark textbook answers after your Commanders go 4-1. I already say I'd feel blessed too. I'd feel blessed too.
Yeah, I'm just trying to act right now. You know what I'm saying? But we beat the Ravens. I'm gonna start acting out of pocket. We beat the Ravens this weekend. So
that's the Battle of the Beltway, right? That's what y'all call it, the Beltway. That's like the Beltway series.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I think that game itself has only happened like eight times or something in NFL history. Like, you know, given how close the teams are, they really haven't played that many times. I know we play them in the preseason a lot, but in terms of like regular season matchups, like it don't happen. It don't happen often. So
right,
it'd be cool to see. It'd be cool if they like reshuffled. You know what I'm saying? Like conference alignment in the NFL. I mean, like, why aren't the Commanders and the Ravens in the same division? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, the area needs one from each conference.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Jets and Giants. We only play really in preseason.
4
we don't
years
see each other in regular season games. And I wish I could have your demeanor as it pertains to my football team right now. We just canned our head coach. We got a quarterback who we done put all our eggs in his basket.
You was talking all that shit last time we went on, bro.
You was talking cash.
Jet
I ain't gonna hold you.
That's crazy, man.
I gotta, as a Jets fan, I gotta take it, bro. I gotta, whatever. It's bad
bro.
right now.
It's
bad, bro. It's not. Firing our head coach is not gonna solve the problem. The problem is Aaron Rodgers appears to be past his prime, and unfortunately, if he can't take us there, it's about. Hey, maybe we can get Shador. I'll take Shador, Garrett Wilson. You know what I'm saying? Sauce Gardner.
Shador built though. I feel like Shador built to like handle that kind of pressures. You gotta be a certain type of dude to play in New York City, to be a star in New York City. You know what I'm saying? Like Eli Manning kind of had that like Eli Manning wasn't much of a character, but he kind of just had that level-headedness. You know what I'm saying? That blank stare, level-headedness. You know what I'm saying? To get him through it, kind of like, you know, flush things out. Shador problem, like, I don't know, man. Like, us New York media, I feel like they had some fun in those press conferences talking to dudes. So, I mean, we'll see. He's a hell of a quarterback, man. So,
yeah, I don't think we're going to lose enough games to really get him. I think we're going to be the delusionally.
Hey, don't speak too soon, bro. Don't speak too soon.
I mean, at this point, y'all better win as many as you can because y'all gotta do that. Y'all gotta do that in order to justify everything that you did. Someone got to pull up to Hassan Reddick crib and just tell him like, "Yo, we got that contract. Come on, bro.
We don't though. We don't have that contract. We're not paying him, and that's the problem. And oh my God, I'm gonna pop up. Let's talk basketball.
Yeah, man. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. We are in the throes of the preseason. Knicks and Nets starting off. And CJ, I'll start with you on the Nets beat. It seems like Ben Simmons is he going on a revenge tour? Is he? I saw the comments about his contract. Let me pull those up for you because somebody asked him about the prospect of is he playing? Are we seeing contract year Ben Simmons? And my man said, "F what happens next year and what contract I get if I get a contract." Talking about his pending free agency. So talk to me, Mr. Holmes. Talk to me. What are you hearing? What do you think Ben's mentality is coming into this new season and in a contract year?
Well, you know, first and foremost, shout out to Brian Lewis of the New York Post for getting that exclusive with Ben out in San Diego. Secondly, I mean, it all sounds good, right? It sounds good, but it's like, you know, like a lot of people, it's kind of like I'll believe it when I see a situation. That's no knock on Ben. It's just that there's not enough evidence yet to suggest that it's anything more than, you know, what we've been seeing for him the last couple of years. You know, you got Chris Brickley out here talking about, oh, Ben's in all-star form. Ben's in all-star form, right? You know, then we watched this preseason game, and it isn't like Ben was absolutely terrible, but that wasn't an all-star impact. Cam Thomas had, 12 points on 3 of 5 shooting and in 17 minutes. James Harden had like 16 points and a half. Like that's all-star level production. And that, that not only like that kind of like offensive, what's the word I'm looking for? Aggressiveness that we haven't seen from Ben in years, but like, it's just we just got to see more, man. Like you can do all the talking that you want, but at the end of the day, you got to go out there and put it on the floor. We all know what he can be when he's dialed in and locked in and aggressive and healthy. That's a 3-time All-Star, all defensive guy, man. Like, this is a guy who at one point was drawing comparisons to LeBron James, right? But we haven't seen that guy in quite some time. So I mean, yeah, I understand that Ben is like, he's trying to protect his own reputation and, let people know that, this is going to be different. But like,
right.
It's one thing to say it and it's another thing to go out there and do it. Right. So, and, another thing is, when you're making as much money as him, like the expectations are going to be higher. That's 40 M's,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying, this year. So, are we going to get, are the Nets going to get 40 M's worth of production?
Well, it doesn't really matter at this point because he's coming off the books in 25. Because I was wondering, I said, well, who's going to pick up Ben Simmons' contract?
I'm thinking more so for like Ben and his legacy and like his future in the league. You know what I'm saying? So, because I think the writing's pretty much on the wall that this will be his last season with the Nets. I think that's pretty clear. But and just in terms of Ben and like his future, man, like I hope he can turn around. Like I feel like. That's one thing that Ben said, in his interview with Brian, is just like, it's just disrespectful to assume that like he's stealing money because he's been hurt and stuff. Well, it's just like, you gotta go out there and like show that it's something other than that. You know what I'm saying? You keep talking like, oh, I'm healthy now. All right, well, go out there and show it with, an all-star impact at both ends of the court, because at the end of the day, that's still inside you somewhere, right? You just got to bring it back out.
CJ cooking. I'm not going to hold you. CJ, you hit all the high notes. You hit all the low notes. Yeah, we've seen this before, right? And you hope that Ben can go back to being that player, right? Because we've all seen it. There were even glimpses. I'm sure you've probably seen him in the glimpses of what he can be. And it's brutal because this happens. And sometimes, injuries are part of the game, right? Like if we could just go into the NBA like 2K and turn injuries off, imagine what kind of basketball we'd have, right? But that's not real life, right? People get hurt. And when guys get hurt, the lower back is one of the most difficult to overcome, right? So it's tough. But at the end of the day, to your point, you can go and talk about what kind of seasons it's going to be. And at the end of the day, you're getting paid to play. So, man.
That's good to know on your end, CJ, where you're putting the onus on Ben, because I wonder where the organization's emphasis lies. Because we had this conversation last time we linked up, whether or not they're going for the tank. Are we arming the tanks and rolling to the draft? Are you going to try to make a fake run for the play-in and then shut it all down? Are people on the trade block? Because I'm looking at some of the pieces the Nets have, and I see a lot of good veterans. Shout out to Dorian Finney-Smith, my over on threes god when he was on the Mavs, where if my parlay was solid if I had him in it. What do you think what can you tell, I should ask you, from what you've seen so far in the preseason and the vibe you're getting in terms of when does this actually become an official tank?
Well, you're starting to see the signs of it, right? Like the signs of,
already we're talking about tank.
You're starting to see the signs of war, right? So, during training camp week, and now granted injuries happen, right? But like training camp week rolls around, the Nets on that Wednesday of training camp, the Nets had a great scrimmage by all accounts. Everyone's talking about how competitive it is, and everyone's on the same page. And then a day before the team leaves for San Diego, all of a sudden Nick Claxton got a hamstring injury. Now Daron Sharp got a hamstring injury, and Trendon Wofford got a hamstring injury. Now you tell me, what are the odds? Now I'm not calling nobody a liar or anything, but like they're already shutting guys down for the preseason. You know what I'm saying? So 3 hamstring injuries right now. Daron Sharp is out. It was going to be reevaluated in 6 weeks. Trendon Wofford's going to miss the whole preseason too. And we don't even know if we're going to see Nick Claxton this preseason. I think Jordy Fernandez, after the game the other night, said, it went from Knicks just gonna miss one game to, we'll see. Now the goal is kind of to have Nick ready for opening night. So, at the end of the day, it's the preseason, but when guys start getting sit, you kind of know what's coming, right? When guys start sitting, things of that nature. In terms of the vets, like I don't think there's any trades that are imminent. I think that the Nets are gonna like kind of wait for the best possible offers to come in. Wait a little bit till teams can get a couple weeks into the season, see where the deficiencies are, see where their holes in the rosters are, and then that's when you start inquiring about a Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, the Dennis Schroeder, guys who can come in and plug holes, for your roster, right? So I don't think there's anything imminent, but in terms of the vets, they look good in the first preseason game. Now Cam Johnson didn't shoot the ball too well, but Dennis Schroeder was playing fast and playing with pace and harassing ball handlers and getting to the cup. And Joe played harder than anyone else on the court in the first half. So these guys clearly still have more in the tank. And, at some point you gotta imagine they're going to end up elsewhere. But right now it's kind of like I don't want to call it like a tryout period, but these guys they got to show what kind of value they have, right? Like reestablish that. And then, like I said, once we get a couple of weeks into the season, a couple of months into the season, where teams start seeing the holes that they need to fill, I think that's when they're gonna start picking up the phone and calling Sean Marks.
I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. The date to watch for all this is December 15th, right? Because that's the day anybody that you just signed to a contract becomes eligible to be traded, right? And when you're looking at just guys like, for example, the Knicks re-signed Precious Achiuwa, and theoretically, Precious Achiuwa played incredibly well last night. He's played incredibly well these first two games. But when you re-sign, and then on top of that, as a way of re-signing, he waived his no trade clause. December 15th is an important date for him too, right? It's an important date for a lot of guys around the league because that's when your future kind of comes out of your hands. As it pertains to Cam Johnson, one team that I've maintained I think is going to request a trade for him, the Cleveland Cavaliers. You look at that team 1, 2, 4, 5. They look good. That 3 spot. I think they're in position to make a compelling offer to the Nets. I think the Nets might listen. Look, Kenny Atkinson is in Cleveland. We're going to get into this whole the Eastern Conference, but I think the Cavaliers are going to end up being really good this season. So look for them in terms of a trade for Cam Johnson potentially.
So CJ, what you're telling me is the Nets front office sent their reminders for when the trial expires. So before they have to re-up, they'll know whether they got to trade it off or not and make some stuff happen because they're not trying to get hit with that $9.99 for no reason, right? Oh, man. Okay, so Jordi Fernandez, first-year coach with the Nets. What do you think? What are you seeing so far in his approach and how the team is receiving him?
I think the team's receiving him well. I haven't necessarily heard anything negative about Jordi. In fact, even when he first got hired, nothing but positivity. And you're starting to kind of see the kind of culture that he's trying to build here in Brooklyn. He just wants guys who play hard and they do things the right way and they have attention to detail, right? He wants to play fast at both ends of court. And, while they got off to an extremely slow start against the Clippers the other night, that second quarter, when they went on that 11-0 run, when guys were flying around and being aggressive and they were running in transition, like that is the type of basketball team that Jordi Fernandez wants to see consistently. Now, granted, the roster might see a lot of turnover here in the next few months, but eventually that's just the kind of program that he's trying to run in Brooklyn. He wants guys who are accountable, who play hard, scrappy, junkyard dogs, man. He wants a team full of junkyard dogs. So, guys seem to be with it, and so it's gonna kind of be a slow thing because he's growing. Just like this roster is, this is his first time being a head coach in the NBA. So, so far, so good for Jordi Fernandez, and we'll see how he builds on it.
All right. So do you think that they're going to give him enough leeway to be able to execute a proper rebuild and actually be able to live in the building that he helps to rebuild, or are they going to
absolutely? I mean that's why they didn't go out and hire a coach like Mike Budenholzer. When you bring in a head coach who's won a championship, that comes with championship aspirations, like contending aspirations. You bring in a guy like Jordi, he's the type of coach who can grow with this team, grow with this roster, because the same way these young guys are figuring out, Jordi Fernandez is figuring out what it takes to be a head coach in the NBA. So I think Sean Marks had that in mind when he hired him, just so you can kind of have a guy like Fernandez fits the timeline, right? So it's not really about what Jordi does in year 1 and 2. I feel like, by year 3 or 4, though, that's when you'll kind of see everything starting to click. That's when you'll see, his vision for this team out there on the court every day. And I think that's when the expectations are going to come like, hey, man, it's time to start winning some games. Like right now, I think there's a lot of leeway because everyone's kind of figuring it out.
That's what it is. Pick up game, talking Knicks and Nets. NYC Hoops, my guy, CJ Holmes covering the Nets beat. Who stood out to you so far in this first preseason game?
Zaire Williams, man. Cam Thomas did what he does, right? But Zaire Williams, man, he really stood out. He moved well without the ball. When he came in the second quarter, the entire game changed defensively. He loved the athleticism. I think he had like 3 or 4 dunks, like right at the rim. And you see the tools, right? You see the tools, and that's definitely he definitely appears to be a project worth investing in if you're Brooklyn. He fits the timeline. He's only 23 years old, and sometimes in his league, these young guys just need a fresh start. Now, granted, it's one preseason game, it's a small sample size, but in that first game, he made a strong case for why he deserves to be playing extended minutes out there on the wing. So, we'll see if he can keep it up. But that first preseason game, I think he exceeded a lot of people's expectations. Like he was a smooth operator out there. He was clean.
I like that. I saw the comeback in the second half, and I was like, oh, they really trying to turn up. People are trying to get jobs out there, and that's what the preseason, part of the preseason is for, trying to convert that 2-way to the 1-way. You feel me?
Yeah.
So I totally get that. All right, let's transition over to the Knicks beat, my guy, Chris Winfield. Let me talk first. We didn't get a chance to chat in the whirlwind aftermath of the Cat trade and what happening. Right. Let me know what you're hearing so far on that news, like with Cat and how the Knicks are receiving. Well, let me not say receiving, but what's the first impressions of Cat? Like how they feel post trade so far.
I think what was really interesting was just the way that everyone addressed the situation after the trade, right? Cat, the first thing he says is, hey, much love to the guys over in Minnesota. I was able to grow and become a man over there. I'm excited about this new chapter. And the Wolves front office kind of said the same thing. This is an organization that drafted Cat first overall in 2015 and really watched him go through so many different life phases and kind of become a man and then blossom into what the Knicks hope are a franchise cornerstone type of all-star. This is a guy who's a 4-time all-star. He shot 40% from 3 in 5 of the last 7 seasons, right? And he's one of the more skilled 7-footers that the league has. Now, will it work? Right? That's a different question, right? On paper, it looks good. And on the floor, at times, it looked really good. You've got a Knicks offense that is 5 out completely right now. And the spacing on the floor, I mean, Cat's not even touching the ball. And these guys are getting open baskets just because of the gravity he has. Like he's pulling the center away from the rim. And now you've got Jalen setting an off-ball screen for OG. And OG's taking that screen. Mikhail's getting the dump-off pass. And now it's the onus is on, this happened in the Charlotte game, the onus is on a guy like LaMelo Ball to recover in time to block that layup because you don't have a rim protector, right? And just that alone is opening up lanes for guys to score. But, defensively, right, and we'll get into it, defensively, that's the question mark in terms of rim protection. To your question, though, in terms of how the trade was received, it was bittersweet, right? Julius was the person who came here when no one else wanted to, put the team on his back, got you guys to the playoffs, and then you start building around that. But then also to give up Dante. I mean, Dante's a guy who, when we're talking about the Villanova reunion, you don't write that story without Dante, right? And he comes in here, sets a Knicks record for threes made in the season, and then you include him in this trade. A lot of Knicks fans are looking at Dante as the real loss in here because you obviously upgrade on Julius from getting Cat, and that can be debated, right? You can make an argument either way. You can try to make an argument for Julius being a better basketball player than Cat, right? I'm open to hearing both sides of it. I'm thinking with the Knicks want to play a more modern style of basketball with his floor space and 5, Cat fits the vision, but you can certainly make an argument that Julius's dominance and his style of play lends him to being the better guy in the trade. However, giving up Dante on top of that, right? That's where, and the Knicks don't really, you're looking around the roster, you're looking at Landry, who played well one game, a little iffy the next. You're looking at Deuce, who didn't play last night, but he showed you something. Dante is one of the guys where it's like, okay, how do we replace what he brought, right? And that's kind of part of it. And the emotional.
He had a career year shooting the rock too, right? Dante,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Career year.
And to your beat, you know, he credited playing with Steph and Clay and learning kind of the ropes from them as to why he's been able to turn into the shooter. But all in all, I think, you know, the Knicks, when you put them on paper and you look at them on the court, Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, they're wreaking havoc defensively. Jalen is still going to be Jalen. And the Knicks, at least right now, look a little bit deeper in terms of their rotation than you thought. But you played the Charlotte Hornets and you played the Washington Wizards, right? What happens when you play the Boston Celtics on opening night? So we'll see. I know we got a lot to get into, but the Knicks are in an interesting spot. And, you know, we get to be there every day.
Hey, Big Bodega. I ain't saying everybody needs a nickname, but you feeling Big Bodega for Cat?
I don't know how I feel about Big Bodega.
Big Bodega is like we're treading on lines. You feel me? We're treading on lines to where once it gets outside of the community, it becomes problematic. Yeah. Right? So we're treading on lines. The fan base already gave him Bodega Cat.
Yeah,
so I think that's the one. Bodega Cat is the one. Big Bodega, that's Josh Hart being Josh Hart. But Josh Hart, we gotta keep that within the garden. You feel me? Like it can't. Once you start walking around, you go to Indiana. So hey, Big Bodega, why don't you miss another three? Then it starts getting, you know, a little implicative. You feel me? So I'm throwing my hands up. I'm Drewski hands to the Big Bodega. It's hilarious, but Bodega Cat I think is the one that fits. And trust me, there's going to be Santo Domingo is going to be the capital of Madison Square Garden this season because the Dominicans have been alerted. They are going to be rank and file heavy. They already were. But now, when the Celtics come to play the Knicks, boy, it is going to be Dominican Heritage Night, bro.
For me, between him and Al Horford, the winner in all this is me. I love that. You know what I'm saying? I love that for me very, very much. But speaking of Cat, though, you know, this is a guy who has gotten off to a 2 of 12, 2 of 13 start from three-point range to start his Knicks tenure. And we asked him about it, right? But this is also when you consider that he shot, like I said, 40% from three, 5 of the last 7 seasons, you know, universally considered one of, if not the best 7-foot shooter in NBA history.
Hey, bro, one of.
I mean, listen, won a 3-point contest.
Bro. Cat got to do it for a little bit longer. You know,
listen, I crunched the numbers. You know what I'm saying? Dirk didn't shoot as many threes as Cat is, and the efficiency at that volume, it's commendable. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I asked OG who the best shooter was in camp. I asked him if Cat was the best shooter on the team, and he said absolutely not. He was like, I'm the best shooter. Jalen probably. They need to just get on the court and play 500, but OG was like, nah, ain't no smoke. I was like, all right. Either way, I don't think that that Cat's 3-point shooting is going to be an issue. That's one of those guys where he just needs to see a couple go down, and then the floodgates are going to be open. Defensively now, right? Now this is where we're shifting to who's going to protect the rim. How is this going to work, right? That's still an area of concern, right? But, you know, this also goes into Precious, right? And Jericho, and honestly, Ariel Hukporti, who came in the game looking like an immovable object. Is he going to crack the rotation regular season? No, right? But this is something that you look at and you're like, yo, this kid, he has some sort of like actual like you can't move him, right? He has a physical dominance about him that you kind of can't teach, which is really interesting.
Well, let's talk about that, Chris. Let's talk about the rotation, because after a couple of games, you got Knicks fans, you got pundits and everybody talking about the rotations and how Tibbs can possibly expand the rotation. You got guys like Campaign, who's doing what he does, super veteran, all-time top 5 irrational confidence, quirky jump shot that don't look good, but it's cash, right? Yeah. You got him. Then you got the rookies, Tyler Kolek, Ariel Hukporti, stepping up with Sims, who had that ankle injury, I believe, and Dadier, who has a finger injury, so they didn't play, and Deuce was sick, which makes this even crazier that the Knicks forced 30 turnovers on the Wizards, and Deuce was not, it was in street clothes. Matter of fact, Deuce was in the bed. Deuce wasn't even in the building, I don't believe. Deuce was in the bed. And they turned them over 30 times, right? Yeah. So I'm looking at the Knicks right now from what you're seeing and what you're gauging. What does the rotation look like? Who's hopeful to crack the rotation? Who's making a case to not be left off of that final rotation for wherever Tibbs goes 9 or 10 deep?
Yeah, so let's start with the five definites, right? Your starting five is going to be Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, right? That's cemented. Unless something crazy happens, like Deuce taking a step and jumping into the starting lineup and bringing Josh off the bench, which I don't think is the way that this team could go. I could be wrong. That's going to be your starting five. You got the Villanova guys, you got OG, you got Cat. Then right after that, we have to go back to Tibbs' first preseason game. Miles McBride was the first off the bench, and he dropped 22 that game. And this is a guy who just continues to get better every single year. Flamethrower from downtown, defensive pest, guarding full 94. And he's showing an ability to put the ball on the floor now as well and hit that stop and pop mid range. So you're looking at him as the guy, as the sixth man, right? And then after that, you're looking at shoring up that front court, right? Because with Cat and OG at the 5 and the 4, you're giving up some size. So usually you're seeing Precious Achiuwa coming off the bench right there. Precious has been sneaky good to start this preseason. He played 33 minutes in game 1, which is beyond me. How do you play a guy 33 minutes in a preseason opener, right? And then yesterday against the Wizards, this is a guy who's just defensively active all over the place. He's brings size, versatility. Tibbs really likes what he brings, right? Now the trade things come up just because of the nature of the contract he signed and because this team has championship aspirations, right? So you're always looking for that big name. But Precious is a guy who can be a defensive, versatile guy out there, and he doesn't necessarily need the ball on offense to make an impact. He's a hustle player, right? That's a guy that this team likes for now, right? I will see what happens December 15th. You got to do it consistently. So that's 6 and 7. After that, you're looking at Campaign. You're looking at Landry Shamet, right? You're looking at those two guys to step up. You're also looking at Jericho Sims, right? So I think that's what are we at now? 8? Is that 9 guys right now? We were at 5 and then 4.
So you got the 5. You got Brunson, Hart, Bridges, Anunoby, Towns.
Yeah.
Then you got Deuce.
Yeah. Then
you mentioned Precious. Then you mentioned Cam and Landry Shamet. We're already at 9.
That's at 9, right? So that's your first 9, and then from there it goes. Do you need really Jericho to play heavy minutes against this team, right? So it gets team specific from there. If you really need to supersize in order to combat another team's physicality, you'll go Jericho. You'll actually go Jericho and Precious off the bench because that's a lineup last year that was plus 10 net rating all year. It was a small sample size, like 100 minutes, but defensively that's a good lineup. Gives you a lot of size. I've asked Tom about it. He agrees. And they like to play those two guys with the 3-guard unit of Deuce, Landry, and Cam, right? Because that gives you speed, that gives you versatility, that gives you playmaking, and it gives you size all at the same time. The issue here is now we're talking about a guy like Tyler Kolek. And it's not really an issue. If you're the Knicks, it's a wonderful problem to have. While Deuce was out yesterday, Tyler Kolek comes in and he just looks like a natural in terms of a floor general, directing traffic offensively, hitting timely shots, getting guys involved, coming up with 2 steals. Like this is a guy who
he played a lot of college basketball. He played
exactly. You can speak to that. You probably were watching him for a certain amount of time. Like this is a guy who's a vet of a rookie. He's not a real rookie. And he was even talking about, hey, like I was in practice in training camp and I turned the ball over too many times. So when I actually got into the game, I wanted to make sure I had no giveaways. He didn't turn the ball over at all. Right. So this is a guy who's coming in. And then on top of that, I forgot this even happened. He compared himself to Jalen Brunson. Everybody was trying to make the TJ McConnell comparison. TJ McConnell, he compared himself. He said, no, I kind of look at myself more as a Jalen Brunson. Jalen got asked about that yesterday. And he goes, yo, the way he's playing, I can kind of see why he would say that. So to get a stamp like that from a guy like Jalen coming off this is pick number 34, guys. This is a guy who's not really honestly supposed to be leaving this type of. It's a preseason game, right? We can overreact a little bit.
Hey, wasn't Brunson like pick 32? Wasn't Brunson a second round pick?
Yeah, he was. So, you understand? So. Yeah, no, it was a good game for Tyler Kolek, but he's one of the guys who's kind of at the door knocking in on the rotation. But if you got Deuce, Landry, and Campaign, and you brought Campaign in, you brought Landry in because these are playoff tested guys, Tyler Kolek might be maybe the odd man out, but it might maybe be situational. So guys get hurt, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you need some additional playmaking. Anything could happen. Someone could get traded, right? This is a team that's expected to be active. You trade somebody. Now, boom, like I said, December 15th, that's that date. That's that date to watch out for.
CJ, you seen Kolek in Marquette, right? Marquette is where he went. Big East Player of the Year. Yeah. Marquette still being in the Big East. All right, whatever. I won't tell y'all to get off my lawn, but I remember my Big East ain't that Big East, but still Big East is Big East. He Big East Player of the Year. What do you see about his game that you think would translate the best in the NBA?
He's always under control. He doesn't let anybody speed him up. He's not the most athletic guy. He plays under the rim, but he knows how to get into the paint. He gets paint touches. He can spray it all around. He's a great passer, and he's a much better finisher at the rim than I think he got credit for during the NBA draft process. And great knockdown shooter too, off the catch and shoot. He just has a lot of skills that just translate to the NBA game. You know what I'm saying? He knows how to play. He plays the right way. And, above all, he's supremely confident in himself. And, that's the biggest thing. And you got to believe you can do it. Because you don't believe you can do it, no one's going to believe in you. Yeah. So I'm trying to remember. I think Kolek was at Marquette when I was still covering Villanova. But, I have watched him play. I actually watched a bunch of his games through years, and he's a good player. And, it's funny because during the pre-draft process over at the Daily News, me and Christian are working on stories like, who should if the Nets somehow get a draft pick this year, who should they target? And, Christian did too. And I think on both of our lists, we had Tyler Kolek, because the Nets, one thing they did not have is shot creation. And I think Kolek fell as far as he did, maybe because of the athleticism concerns, but he is probably as good as it gets, or just about as good as it gets in last year's draft class in terms of creating shots for the people around him and, running an offense.
Yeah. And it's funny. I think about that term athleticism, right? And I think people constrict it to just how strong you are, how high you can jump, and how fast you can run. If you look it up, go on Google, do your Googles literally, right? If you look at what is athleticism, there's articles that break it down that there's multifaceted. Like if you have elite footwork, that's being athletic. You look at anybody who can't dance and you could tell, like if you have good footwork, you have to have a certain amount of athleticism to be able to have the rhythm to put those combination of moves with your feet and your arms together to be able to dance. In the same way, you have elite footwork, mental athleticism too, just being able to quickly process, even just like quick twitch movements and things of that nature. So there's a lot more, because I remember when the whole, if Jalen Brunson had lifts in his shoes, he would be considered one of the best players in the NBA right now. When there was the heightism was going on about Jalen Brunson.
I mean, that's what they said about Jalen, right? They're like, he's too small, too short, he's not athletic enough, short,
and all of that. So they were saying that he wasn't athletic, and I'm looking at it and I'm saying this is a dude points per possession that's leading the NBA in post-ups last year, which is something that's crazy at his height and at a guard. And you watch his footwork and you watch the way he moves. He does have athleticism to him. Now, does he have a 40-inch vertical, and is he double clutch dunking? Nah. Like that's the athleticism that we associate with the NBA. But there's a lot more that you can do other than that quantifies as elite athleticism.
And not to mention just like, the competitive spirit and will to win. Jalen Brunson wasn't a one-time National Player of the Year. He was a two-time National Player of the Year. And I have not seen that since in the college game, someone win that. He's won championships. Like that means something, right? That means something. And, when it comes to NBA scouts, right? And, when you're evaluating talent, I think too much we get lost in, like you said, the athleticism, the eye test rather than like the intangibles and like individuals' will to win, because that shit matters and that shit makes a difference. A guy can be as talented as can be, but if he don't got that dog in him, he ain't gonna do nothing for you. We've seen it time and time again. What separates Jalen Brunson from maybe other players with his build and skill set is he got that dog in him, and you see it night after night when the Knicks take the court.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Chris, what can you tell us on Mitchell Robinson? So I saw recently Shams came out and confirmed reports that have been out that Mitch is pretty much sorry for 2024. He's gone until 2025. And the hope is beginning of 2025, he can return. The Knicks reportedly are being cautious with his return. Is there any more color you can give to that?
Well, I mean, it's rightfully cautious when you consider his recent injury history. This is a guy who had the same injury to the same foot twice, both times requiring surgery. And the latest one happened in the playoffs when the team needed him. And granted, we all watched what Joel Embiid did, right? We all saw that first round series. One way or another, his offseason was going to be a little iffy. But once you get to that series in Indiana and his ankle it's over for it, at that point, you as an organization have to say, yo, we don't want to take the chance of putting him on the floor until we know for certain he's a full go. He's not a full go yet, and that's just what it is right now. That being said, Tibbs was asked yesterday what he's doing right now, and obviously he was pretty short with the response, just saying he's just rehabbing, just doing basic recovery.
Doing the work.
Didn't sound like he was doing anything. Yeah, it didn't sound like he was doing anything on the floor. Didn't sound like he was doing much of anything that would suggest an earlier timeline than coming back at the beginning of 2025. But, you know, we'll see. This is a team that's hoping that it can fill in for him just by the virtue of the lineup I brought up. Jericho and Precious as a different profile than, you know, Cat and OG to have that 5 out. It's really effective, especially when you pair that with the spacing that you get from a 3-guard lineup. I kind of want to see what it looks like when you have Jalen in that lineup. If you're running Jericho and Precious, and then you have Jalen and maybe Deuce, and then maybe Landry as part of that lineup, and you're just out there running and able to shoot and create, I think that would be a really good lineup. So we'll see more of that, particularly possibly in the next game coming up. Next game, guys, that's against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, who would have thought? This makes you think that there's actual NBA script writers who do this, right? Because what are the odds that you trade with the Timberwolves and then you happen to play them game 3 out of 5 in the preseason? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous if you ask me. But listen, they may or may not play. We'll see if Julius and Dante play or if Cat sits or what the matter is. But there's a chance that we get a reunion. Julius coming back to the Garden really much sooner than anybody anticipated, which I would be interested just in seeing how the fans would receive him. I would assume that is going to be applause and everybody showing love. And I think Julius he kind of needs that, right? This is a guy who they just renamed the court at Earl Monroe School after him because he helped raise 1.3, however many $1 million towards, you know, building out that school, which is really tiered towards kids in the South Bronx who, you know, think that the only way to get out is, you know, going to play ball or whatever it is. No, you can use school to get you into a basketball career without ever having to pick up the ball. You know, it's an admirable thing that they're trying to do. And just a couple of days later, he's on the plane to Minnesota, right? So it's kind of interesting. So I'm interested to see what that game looks like. But when you also look at it, neither of these teams, in terms of the Timberwolves or the Knicks, can really afford to just punt on a preseason game because of emotions, right? Like, these guys got to figure out the X's and O's. The Knicks play the Boston Celtics opening night. They want to be ready to beat the defending champions there. And Tom already said we got a lot of work to do, which I can agree, even though they look good. I'm sure the Timberwolves is a team that made it to the Western Conference Finals. It knows the value of, you know, training camp and how you have to maximize it. I think we see these guys on the floor, and I think we see them play extended minutes because this is the third game right now. The guys played 25, 26 minutes in the last game. What are they going to play this time? So really interested in seeing that game for sure.
Couple of quick points before we move on. I think the fact that Cat, and it's funny, we keep using the caveat, it's the Wizards, but I get it. I get it. But it seems like they're getting more used to each other. Cat dropped 25 and 12, and that was a pretty mid game for him. 7 to 20 from the field.
I think mid is
12.
Mid
12.
A lot of,
right. Like he got to the free throw line. He was able to cash in there, and he wasn't fully in sync.
Yeah.
And he still was able to drop 25 and 12. And I think that was the calmest 23-point Jalen Brunson performance I've seen in a minute. Watching their pick and roll action and some of the sets that they're running, I just was dumbfounded because I did not know the Knicks were allowed to run offense like this. I didn't know it was allowed, but seeing the motion, seeing the modernity of their offense, how they're using pick and roll action, how they're using back pick action, off ball cuts, all of these things early. Because I remember when OG came to the Knicks, he even said, I don't know no plays, I'm just cutting. I told him, I'm out there, I'm on the wing. If somebody loses me on defense, I'm cutting. Just look for me on the back cut. And that worked for like a month. You know what I mean? So these are some things that I think we see. Also, Tyler Kolek, he been here before. You know how you see a baby, they say, this baby been here before. Tyler Kolek plays like he's been here before. I don't think it's wilding to say if he gets regular rotation minutes, he's instantly one of the best passers in the NBA. If he gets the opportunity, he can show that early just from his vision and the way he gets to the ball. Now, cross court and doing all that other stuff, that's like the S tier. But just the way he can find people. Like, he's the type of player that I feel like we could run with him on the court and he could get us a contract just because he'll find us. and we'll be able to score. He makes the game easier. And the fact that fans, this isn't just the normal fans find their fan favorite guy like he's the backup quarterback and they throw all their support behind him because they want to see him get more run. He's proving that somehow, some way, he might have to get a rotation spot or some consideration going down the line. And I think that's a better problem that the Knicks have now than they had when they traded Dante and Julius.
Yeah. So two things. First, let's push back on crowning Tyler Kolek as one of the best passers in the NBA if he gets
I'm saying if he gets regular minutes, that's my hot take. The way I see the skills,
and this is the Knicks fandom menu, right? So this is the Knicks fandom menu where you see something and it is, but for Tyler's sake, right? Let's let him get acclimated to the league. Let's let him try to score on Drew Holiday or try to make a play against Drew Holiday. Let's give him time to actually play right before we try to crank, because sometimes you put unfounded expectations on these guys and they fall short, and now you who place the expectations on them are wilding on the mic. Not you in general.
I know, but listen to what I say. If, and you know of ifs and fifths, right? That's where I think his ceiling is, just from I see raw skills. But I think if he gets the opportunity, where I'm putting him on the unsigned hype section of the source right now. He's in the unsigned hype section right now. Y'all check out his mixtape, and 2 years when he blow up, remember who put you on. Remember who put you on. That's how I'm going right now. But yeah, this is just an example, Chris and CJ, of how fans are already bought in. Last week it was, oh man, this bench, you need one more guy. This week it's, why is Campaign getting minutes over Tyler Cole? It's just ill how the mood can change the minute you see a glimmer of talent. But like you said,
as a delusional Jets fan, I understand the swing of emotions. Trust me. But to your point, Cat, and it's interesting because you said it was a mid game. No, I'd argue that was a poor game for him, right? For the standard that he holds himself to. This is a guy who knows and comes in as a vaunted 3-point shooter. This is also a guy that is supposed to be more efficient than 7 of 20, right, against the Washington Wizards. I'm sorry, and he was the same. He'll agree to that. We spoke to him after the game, right? So I'm expecting him this next game, right, to really show us what the dominant Cat looks like. That being said, when you're talking about this offense with Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges is really showing some of the things that. It may be an extension of what he did in Brooklyn. CJ, I'll pose you this question because I didn't ask. I spoke to Mikal about this yesterday. The Knicks made an effort to post him up, like high post, low post. They were posting him up frequently. They went to that over and over and over again in the first quarter, in the second quarter, when the offense wasn't running through Jalen or through Cat. Now that was also an opportunity for Mikal to make passes. He was diming other guys, but he was really there trying to exploit the opportunity to score in the post. Is that something that you saw him do with the Nets at all last year? Because I asked somebody, he goes, he's done it
too much.
But it wasn't like
corner threes, and like they put him in ISO a lot. Like they just gave Mikal the ball and told him to go get a bucket a lot. Not too many post up situations, but that is an interesting way to utilize them. Get them in the short post a little bit. Maybe find some mismatches, get a little speed mismatch, get around guys, get to the rim, back cuts. So I see a vision hanging out.
I think the winner undoubtedly in all of this is Tom Thibodeau's offensive reputation, right? Because he had a reputation as a guy who ISO ball. That's all he knows. When whole time open up the court and let him put something to work, right? Like he's utilizing guys. He's using Cat in the same way that they were using Isaiah Hartenstein last year, using him to make plays from the high post, from 3-point range. He's making plays out there. He's running off. The way the offense looks is night and day from what it's looked like the last few years under him. And this is maybe what happens when you spread the floor out. You get a guy who can space the floor and give other guys opportunities to get to the rim, right? Like I think Tom Thibodeau, in terms of his offensive creativity, like now you understand, okay, maybe it was just a product of the roster that you had. Now, maybe when you can space the floor out, maybe he doesn't look like this archaic ISO heavy coach that everyone tried to make him out to be. So, hey, winner in my book is Tom Thibodeau on offense for sure.
And I think Mikal definitely won being the third option on this team, because I think there's a lot of points for him on the table when teams are eventually going to have to pick their poison. They're going to try to pick Josh Hart by hella high water. And I think they're going to scheme scheme their way into making you have to pick Mikal. And that's where I think he's going to thrive as that third option that'll randomly drop 35, 40 points. And you're like, how the hell did this happen? Because he's going to be running with second units. He's going to be cleaning up on the glass. He's going to be getting those open 3-point shots. So it bodes well for what the Knicks are trying to do. And it's going to be funny seeing that juxtaposition between who Mikal was on the Nets as the 1-2 option and trying out. It was almost like he was auditioning. It's like you get the promotion, but you're like, damn, I wasn't really trying to do all this work. But I'm gonna do it anyway because I know it'll prepare me for whatever the next role is. So we'll see how that happens. So before we get out of here, our teams we cover in the Eastern Conference. So we wanted to go around and give our Eastern Conference tiers. So now the tiers that we have are contenders, playoff teams, play-in teams, and drag for flag. It's 4 contender, the 4 tiers. It's very simple. We go to it. Let's start with the contender. CJ, I'll start with you. Who do you have in your contender tier?
Let's see.
Hey,
Contenders, I would say, New York, obviously. Boston, they're defending champs. Philly, they got Paul George in the mix. And Indiana.
oh man, nah, I don't think Indiana's a legit. Just because I'm
It's in the Eastern Conference. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals.
They beat an injured Bucks team with no Giannis, and they beat the Knicks with no players.
Look, say what you want. Say what you want. They're still into the Eastern Conference.
First round out.
First
round out.
Hold on. You'll get your time. So CJ, you said Knicks, Pacers.
Knicks, Pacers, Celtics, Sixers are my contenders in the
those are your so that would be your top 4.
Yeah.
All right. Who you got, Chris?
I got the traditional 4 that we thinking of. I got Boston number 1. I got Milwaukee up there. I got Philly, and I got New York. I think everybody else is trying to catch that top 4. I think Orlando is going to be a lot better than people are giving them credit for. I think they're one piece away. They're one piece away from and that piece is a point guard that can get out there and get a bucket. They get a real aggressive 1 guard. Look out for Orlando. And then Cleveland, I think it's going to be sneaky good because I love what Kenny Atkinson does. And I think they're also one piece, which is maybe Cam Johnson or a 3 or just a bona fide 3 away.
But for your contenders, you got Milwaukee, Philly, New York, Boston, right?
Yeah. As long as Giannis is healthy. If Giannis ain't healthy, then no. But if Giannis is healthy and Dame is healthy, then absolutely.
So I think they're getting old, man. I just think Milwaukee's just getting old. Like their roster, and Dame looks like he lost a step, and
I hope not. But
Giannis is still Giannis, but like the pieces around him, just like they're not right now. You know,
but you got to figure.
So that's why I don't have him.
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear that for sure. But if you put Giannis and Dame together in camp. And you don't have a mid-season head coaching change and stuff like that. Like I got to believe that 2 players that are the best to ever do it. Knowing that the time is now. If it don't work out this season, I think one of them or both of them are gone. Right. So this is the only opportunity to do it. I think they come together and make a strong push. I could be wrong though, because you make a good point. The pieces around them, nah.
So here's where I'm going with it, and I flip-flop back and forth, but I lock it in. I think Boston and New York are clearly in my contender tier. I have concerns about Philly. I have concerns about Milwaukee in terms of where they're going to be positioned, because I don't know if their stars are going to play all them games.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to coin flip, I think for me, I'm going to rock with Milwaukee and then go to Cleveland for my top 4.
Ooh.
And I'm going to go with Cleveland because they really didn't have any disruption from this season to next. They had no departures, I don't believe. They just signed and retooled or do whatever, right? And they had a lot of injuries. And still willed themselves to around like the middle of the playoff hunt or whatever. So I look at them and I'm just thinking they have one of those teams that win the sneaky 50 games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I could be wrong, and there's always one team, right? Like the Cavs got a top 4 seed. They got the 4th seed at 48-34, and they were missing. Garland missed a bunch of games. Donovan missed a bunch of games. Jared Allen missed a bunch of games. So I'm just holding for them, for everyone that was in the top 4 to hold form again. So I think there usually is a surprise. Yeah. If Paul George and Maxey play a lot of games, I could see them creeping into the top 4. But in terms of just not even seeding, if you ask me like the contender tier, which is what I'm asking, right? So let me ask myself, a straight contender tier, I think it's Boston, Knicks, Sixers, Bucks, and Cavs. Like I would put those 5 in my contender tier, with the Cavs being like the outside shot. So now playoff teams. Yeah, each had like a top 4. So this would be teams that, whether it's the play or whatever, they're
right?
gonna lock in.
The top 6, right? Because that 6 is where we should cut it off at. Because everybody else,
right. I mean, these are your tiers. So even if so, think about it like this: you think their ceiling is X. So for me, those 5, their ceilings are being a actual legit contender, which means I think you could win the conference, right? Yeah. If you're a playoff team, however you get in, whether you get in through the play-in or you lock in a top 6, who you expect to be in the official NBA playoffs from the Eastern Conference. Like that's what your tier is. Then play-in would be like, you just playing for a shot, but I don't expect you to be there. So in terms of playoff teams, from the people you didn't, I'll start with you, Chris. For the people you didn't mention, who do you consider like a playoff team?
Indiana, right? That's one. I consider Indiana a tier lower. Indiana might have to put together a trade of some sort, because that being top 6 is not a given right now, right? Orlando, I think I like Orlando more than I like Indiana. I like Cleveland more than I like Indiana. And I didn't mention either of them in my top 6, right? My top 4. I mean, my top 4 was Milwaukee, Boston, New York, and Philly, right? So now you got 3 teams right under that got to fight for those last 2 spots. That's Cleveland, Indiana, and who was the other team I was just talking about? Cleveland, Indiana, Orlando, right? And Orlando, I don't know if I got Orlando above Cleveland, but I definitely have Orlando above Indiana in terms of how I think that series would go. So I don't know. And then you mess around, Miami, just when you count them out, that's the year that they want to go win 50 games, or maybe they won't win 50 games, but they'll sneak into the playoffs of the 8th seed and then just run the table on everybody, right? So you can't really count Miami out ever. So that's your teams right there.
Here's my quick question, and you can answer it. CJ can answer it. At what point does the boogeyman? At what point do we look under the bed and we see that there's nothing under the bed, bro? We look in the closet, ain't no eyes in the closet. It's just a stuffed animal. Like at what point is it just Miami trauma that you're just like, yo, I don't want to count them out. You got like Miami PTSD where you're like, yo, they are going to pull something out of their hat. They're going to get this 3rd round. We don't even got 3 rounds, but they're going to find some 3rd round pick that ends up balling out and whatnot. I mean, at what point is the boogeyman? At what point are we no longer afraid of the dark?
The boogeyman is called the boogeyman for a reason. You never forget about the boogeyman. He is always lingering in the back of your brain. Like there is no way that you ever count. Whenever you ask Tibbs about the teams in the East, he always says, "Yo, you can't even forget Miami. Like Miami is one of those teams that'll catch you." Like it's tough. As long as Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo are on the same team and they look like they have a roster that's trying to do something, I'm gonna give the Heat even a 1% shot at running the table. You never know.
All right. Well, CJ, who do you have in your playoff tier?
I think you muted.
See the big red light.
Y'all can hear me?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. All right. So, I was just saying, like the Heat will always scare teams for 3 reasons, like for a few reasons. 1, the culture that they have down there. 2, Eric Spoelstra, and 3, how they identify and develop talent. You know, they bought in Jaime Jaquez last year. He was great, fantastic for them. But they got this kid out of Indiana this year named Kel Ware.
Oh yeah,
and boy, oh boy, he like think Derek Lively, but with a bag.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Knicks had him on their radar too. The Knicks definitely.
If he pans out, then between him and Bam Adebayo, you might be looking at one of the better defensive front courts in the league going forward. You know what I'm saying? So Jimmy Butler's still there for now. So he's gonna have them. He raises the level. He raises the floor for them. So Miami is definitely one of those. They're a playoff team. Maybe I will demote after hearing Christian's logic. Maybe I do demote Indiana down to, playoff team instead of contender.
I got a hot take.
I think Cleveland's just a playoff team, and Orlando, Orlando. I already said that I don't think Milwaukee has enough around Giannis to get that done, and I think Dame is starting to decline a little bit. And the Orlando Magic, I still think they're a few pieces away also, but I do think they'll be a playoff team.
Here's my hot take. The Indiana Pacers and the Charlotte Hornets will be fighting for the last Eastern Conference playoff seed.
Hey, LaMelo's back. I mean,
the Charlotte Hornets and the Indiana Pacers are fighting for the same seed.
So Charlotte is one of your play-in teams then?
I got Charlotte impressing in ways that people don't see. I think Brandon Miller is going to take a step. I think LaMelo. I like Brandon Miller. Yeah, Brandon Miller is one of the ones. And Miles Bridges is on that roster. You can't forget about him on the floor. LaMelo orchestrating the traffic out there. The center spot is obviously a concern for them, but they play so fast. And LaMelo, if he's healthy, is just a star out there. People forget about him. So
they got Josh Green too.
That was a sneaky
pickup too. In terms of defensively, that was a sneaky pickup.
Yeah,
he was involved in the PJ Washington trade, right?
Yeah.
So that's quite the team. Yeah.
I hope LaMelo's healthy because I want to see a full year of LaMelo and Brandon Miller and see what they can do, because I think Charlotte might have snuck their way into having two excellent players where they don't have to cheap out and try to get rid of them. Like they can actually let them play and try to build something. So I definitely want to see that. I think I'm tapping in with Charlotte. I'm buying a little bit of the Charlotte hype to fight. I think the Hawks are like the incumbent that they're just there. They're just there as a playoff, a playing team. Risache.
Oh, am I asleep? Am I asleep on the Hawks?
Look, I ain't heard Zachary's name since he went first overall. Everybody's kind of sleep on him. He looked great in his first preseason game.
He was balling in summer league too, low key. Like he was doing his thing. So, but I would say they are the incumbent play-in team on my list. Like they run unopposed. The Hawks will be there no matter what in the play-in tournament. I like them. I think I do like the Hornets. I think they're gonna fight. I think they're gonna fight and try to get in there for the play-in. We could even mix this with like the drag for flag tier. I think Nets, Wizards, Pistons,
Bulls.
Mm-hmm. Bulls are going to be the 11th team. One way or another. They're either going to be the 11th or they're going to somehow once again sneak into the top 10. But like off some bullshit too. They're going to sneak into the top 10. But I got the Bulls, the Wizards, the Pistons, the Nets, and the Raptors.
Yeah.
As my bottom five.
Did y'all see this? Did y'all see the NBA Power, the ESPN's NBA Basketball Power Index? Is just like for its projections, it doesn't. Number one, it doesn't have the Knicks as a top 16 team finishing at the end of the season, which it has them actually. Funny enough, it has them right under the Pacers, winning 40.6 to 41.4 games. But since we're on the bottom of the list, the Nets aren't even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Nets aren't in the top five, bottom five, according to ESPN Basketball Power Index. They got the Wizards at last. They got the Pistons second to last, the Spurs third to last. I think that's just bad. They got the Trailblazers fourth worst, and then they got the Jazz fifth worst. Then after that, it's the Nets, the Raptors, the Hawks, the Hornets, Bulls, Orlando Magic. This thing is crazy. I don't understand. That's you. If you're telling me the Spurs are going to be a bottom 3 NBA team today, this season, I have a difficult time buying that.
Yeah, the projection that the Knicks are going to only win 41 games is nuts. To me, that model is predicting catastrophic injury across the board. That's what it's really predicting, if that can happen. Like, it's probably saying, oh, they got players who be injured, so we're going to factor that in. But then I think about that, and I'm looking at their win-loss total. the overall win-loss projection, you got the Sixers at 51 and a half to 30 and a half.
Crazy.
I'm like, so we're not factoring that in for them too?
No, I don't think it's injury based, bro. I think it's just numbers. I love it. This model is giving the Knicks a 0.3% chance to win the East. 0.3%. No, to win the division. Excuse me, not even to win the conference. To win the division. Win division percentage 0.3%. But the Celtics only have a 75.9%. So they're really
well. That's the division. They're talking about the Atlantic Division.
Yeah, so they don't think the Knicks are going to finish. They think the Knicks are going to be third in the division behind the Celtics and the 76ers.
Right.
And they think there's a chance they miss the playoffs altogether. 64.6% chance to make the playoffs. Yo, man, sometimes the numbers are wrong. They say the numbers never lie, but sometimes they do.
I would love to know. I would love to know what goes into these projections to where they would project the Knicks to. I don't know. If Knicks fans listen to projections, they would never watch basketball. To keep it 100. So I know how these things go, but it's interesting.
Here's the definition right here. BPI is meant to be the best predictor of a team's performance for the rest of the season. BPI represents how many points above or below average a team is. BPI accounts for game-by-game efficiency, strength of schedule, pace, days of rest, game location, and preseason expectations. Yeah, all bullshit, but whatever.
Yeah, I was trying to look and see if I could find this is the playoff BPI. I was trying to find their BPI from last year to see. Oh, there's a drop down. Let's see. Because, if these predictions, let's see. Well, I can't look at it preseason because they just injected the records that were already there.
I see. Yeah.
I wanted to know if somebody captured it from before to copy then we'll see how accurate it really is. But
yeah,
we're in those days of the season where we gotta start getting our takes off and who's gonna do what. So we'll see. So one thing I know is that everybody can't be right. Somebody gonna be wrong. Everybody gonna be wrong for something. So there's a team. I'm telling you right now, we didn't do the Western tiers, but someone's gonna have to come off of Memphis's playoff spot. I don't know who. I don't know who. Maybe it might be them Clippers. But somebody gonna have to come up off of Ja's spot because he back. And if they stay healthy, someone who made the playoffs in 23-24 will not be making the playoffs this year. So that's how I see it. But that sounds like that's the end. Y'all dropped some great knowledge on us. My guy CJ, my guy Chris. CJ, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on X at HomesScribe, and you can follow me on Instagram at CJHolmes22.
All right, what about you, Chris?
Yep, you know the vibes. You can find me NewYorkDailyNews.com/sports/basketball/Knicks, or
it's a whole lot of URLs.
Yeah, listen, or just pick up a Daily News. You know what I'm saying? Go to that sports section. You're gonna find me as CJ there. But otherwise, on X, or what we know as Twitter, at Chris Blast. Same thing as on Instagram.
Yeah. Jeff J says all social media. Jeff J says this YouTube channel, which you're viewing right now. Check me on Knicks Film School as always. Casual Friday, every Friday, talking the Knicks week in review and everything else in between. And check us out. Pickup game every week, giving you Knicks, Nets coverage and the general NBA. And before we get out of here, you already know Liberty in 4. I don't flinch. I don't flinch whatsoever. Liberty in 4 until we kick in the door. We are celebrating with brunch boots in Williamsburg. You already know the vibes. We giving it up like that. For Chris, for CJ, I'm Jeff. This is the Pickup Game. We will talk to you soon.